Okay, round 5 of the NRL season has concluded. Some interesting results. We only have one unbeaten side left. Every side has now won at least one game. And it's a very interesting look to the ladder. And we can have a look at the NRL ladder after 5 rounds in a later video, because there are some surprises with teams that are struggling. And I will make reference to some of the teams that are struggling. And it's getting to must-win territory for a lot of teams now. But in saying that, let's dive in. The Raiders-Sharks was the opening game of the weekend. The Raiders winning 24 points to 20, so a good bounce-back win for the Raiders at home after 2 straight losses. The Sharks, they've had a bit of an indifferent start to the season. So the Raiders are 3-2, the Sharks are 2-3. It is still early in the season, but it's a good response by Ricky Stewart's Raiders. A lot of people predict them to miss the 8, and a lot of people were suggesting they could get the wooden spoon. Brilliant opening 2 rounds to the competition. 2 poor performances that led to defeats, but a good response at home. I think the Raiders are going to be a little bit more competitive, I think, in the long run. The Sharks, they've been a bit indifferent to start the season. They've shown some good signs, and then they've had some average performances. I think this is a make or break season for the Sharks. I think this is a real important season for the Sharks with their development under Craig Fitzgibbon. I don't know what to make of the Sharks so far this season. I really don't. I think they should be doing better than what they are, but we're only 5 rounds in, and we still have a long way to go in the season. Many weeks to go yet. Panthers, Cowboys. The Panthers have now lost 4 in a row. 18 points to 22 to the Cowboys at home. Very worrying signs for the Panthers. The Cowboys have now won 2 in a row, which is important, so they've started to get their season up and running after a slow start. The Panthers, however, while they're not getting blown out on the score sheet, and that is important, their defence is starting to look very, very human. Something which they built all their success on was their very strong defensive systems. They're now averaging more points a game than they have done in their dominant spell. And their attack is starting to look a little bit dysfunctional as well. So after a great win in Vegas, the wheels have come off, and it's starting to become must-win for the Panthers, because otherwise their chances of not only making the 8, but of actually making finals and making the 8 are fast disappearing. They've given up a lot of a head start to teams around them. They're now below the Cowboys on the ladder as well. They need something to change. Now, whether that's a lineup change, something, because they've fallen apart this season. Very worryingly so. Very worryingly so, how quickly they've fallen off a cliff. Now, I think they will recover. I think they've got enough talent to recover. But it's been a very worrying start to the season. And this is a true test of Ivan Cleary's coaching ability. The Cowboys, as I say, starting to build some momentum and starting to get their season up and running. They've won 2 in a row, so they've built that momentum. The Bunnies, 20, Roosters 14. The Bunnies, a better than expected start to the season with Wayne Bennett in charge. Very strong start to the season with only the 1 defeat. The Roosters, however, much like the Panthers, their fall off a cliff has also been quite worrying. This could be a season where they also miss the top 8, and they're one of the teams that I thought would fall back. But the Roosters, much like the Panthers, they're starting to get into must-win territory now. Their defence has looked very vulnerable at times. Now, they've only had the 1 real heavy defeat, but they've had some vulnerabilities in there as well. Apart from that win over the Panthers, they've looked pretty poor. Again, very clunky. No flow to their game, and defensively they've been found out on more than one occasion as well. So the Panthers and the Roosters are in serious trouble. The Eels 23-22 over the Dragons, Golden Point win. They finally get their first win, but they are still conceding too many points. But in the last couple of weeks, they've started to look more competitive. It's going to be a tough season for the Eels, but hey, they're not winless anymore. They're 1-4 now to start the season. The Dragons keep losing some of these close games. And this is off the back of a really good dominant win over Melbourne, but the Dragons are a frustrating side this season. But the Eels finally got their first win. They're scrapping for everything. They've only had a couple of heavy defeats in there, but the Eels still have a long way to go with Jason Riles as head coach. there's a lot of improvement that needs to happen, but they've got a lot of fight there, and they scrapped and fought for everything, and there have been improvements in their performances in recent weeks. As I say, the Dragons, they're losing a lot of close games, which last season they won, so there are some concerning signs from the Dragons so far this season. Both sides only have the 1 win each. The Titans 10, Dolphins 36. That was a statement win from the Dolphins against the Titans, a very important win. And the way their attack was clicking was really good to see. The Titans, they'll be frustrated with that performance. They're better than that. They've got a lot of attacking talents. That was a really poor performance from the Titans at home. The Dolphins, though, that was a statement win from the Dolphins, considering their poor start to the season and the pressure that was building on them. And the way their attack functioned in that game was really good to see. Good to see a lot of key players getting a lot of good moments on the ball, a lot of good attacking runs, and it was just refreshing to watch the Dolphins do what the Dolphins can do and what is expected of them. More was expected of them this season. Could this be the start of some momentum that they build up? Their next game is against the Panthers, so that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. The Broncos 46, Tigers 24. That was a statement win from the Broncos, although there was moments in that game where they were vulnerable and the Tigers did test them despite the scoreline. The Broncos, they're building something on Michael Maguire. Obviously, the last couple of seasons have been disappointing for the Broncos, especially last season. Their start to this season has been fantastic. The Tigers have had a very good start to the season, however, so this is not all doom and gloom for the Tigers. They've had some very promising signs. They did have some promising signs in this game. There's still room for improvement for the Tigers. I think they're trending in the right direction. Some of their attack was good to see as well, but the Broncos were too strong for them, had too much for them, and got over in the end. And I think the scoreline doesn't suggest actually how close the game actually was, but the Broncos are starting to put in some really good performances that were lacking last season. So let's see how the Broncos do up to about round 10, and then through Origin, and let's see if they're still in the top 4 come Origin time, because that's the last couple of seasons where we've seen some vulnerabilities with the Broncos, is pacing themselves throughout the season, but so far to start the season they look scary. The Sea Eagles 24, the Storm 48. Good response from the Storm. That was a statement win from the Storm following a disappointing loss to the Dragons last week. The Sea Eagles took the lead early on with a penalty, and then the Storm had like a 5-10 minute spell where they blitzed them, and then the second half, with the way the first half ended, they were blitzed in the middle of it, and then the Sea Eagles came on strong towards the end of the first half, and they were testing the Storm, and it was a good first half, and then the second half kicked off, and then the Sea Eagles were blitzed again, 5 tries in the second half, and then suddenly the Sea Eagles started to play towards the end. A couple of little injury concerns for the Storm, but that was a statement win for the Storm. They very rarely lose back-to-back games in consecutive weekends. Hasn't happened for a couple of seasons. And as I say, statement win from the Storm. They are the pre-season favourites, and a win like that is a statement win. So that was the biggest win of the weekend. And then finally, the Bulldogs over the Knights, 20 points to 0. The Bulldogs unbeaten to start the season. They are top of the NRL ladder. For only the 5th time in their history, they've won their opening 5 games and are top of the ladder at this stage of the season. The Knights were dreadful. Defensively, they were good. They put in a good defensive display. It was only 2-0 at half time to the Bulldogs, but the second half, the Bulldogs just went up the middle of them. There was a sin bin in there for a deliberate trip, which didn't help, and we'll discuss sin bins in a later video. There was a lot of sin binnings this weekend, high tackle crackdown, but the Bulldogs have put in another statement win, and they've kept a team to 0. So the Bulldogs have got the best defence, and they're backing up last year. Last year was not a one-off. A lot of people said last year was a one-off. They'll fall back to earth. No, the Bulldogs have just built on last year, and they are in a very strong position after 5 weeks of the season. The Knights, that's 2 really disappointing defeats either side of the bye after a strong start to the season. The Warriors had the bye this week. We can look at the table after 5 rounds. It's a very interesting table. We can do a video on that. But some teams are really in concerning periods of form right now. The Panthers and the Roosters, for example, their form is quite concerning. The Dragons, apart from that shock win last week, their form is quite concerning. A lot of close defeats in there, which would be frustrating. The Knights, they're starting to show some worrying signs. So there's some teams that are entering must-win territory at this point. Some other sides, as I say, the Raiders have had a better than expected start to the season. The Storm, obviously, statement win. The Broncos, a big statement win. And of course, the Bulldogs are the biggest surprise of the lot, with 5 straight wins to start the season. Very strong position at the top of the ladder. No one expected them to be this good. And so already we're seeing some interesting storylines out of the first 5 weeks of the season. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on the first 5 weeks of the season in the comments section below. How is your team performing? But from me for now, that is all from me. And I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.